What are some situations where people wait too long to seek help?
When, for example, the immigration authorities want to withdraw the permit that you received if you don't read Dutch, not familiar with Dutch bureaucracy or the procedures.
Could you share a few cases that were meaningful to you?
Cases where the client is often a woman, unfortunately, a victim of domestic violence. They have taken the decision to leave that relationship that will impact their residency status in the Netherlands. You're Dutch and you want to bring your partner to the Netherlands, and your partner is from Australia, then they don't have to first sit an exam at the Dutch embassy in Australia before being able to travel to the Netherlands. You're exempted from this integration exam. Get the advice from an expert lawyer. Don't ask ChatGPT. It completely made up articles from laws that did not exist, literally.
So, for young people, what you say to inspire and prepare them?
It's very helpful to have those experiences, not just life experiences, but also to have seen a bit of, yeah, the world.
Finally, what does justice means to you? Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Netherlands with Aapt, where we dive into the stories that matters, from immigration and identity to justice and everyday life. I'm your host Aapt. Today's episode is a very special one. We have an immigration and human rights lawyer with us, to whom I know personally because a year ago I was in a situation that my visa or my residence permit was about to expire and it was a bit stressful situation. I took the consultation from her, and that consultation was really turned out to be very good. At the end of the day, I was able to cut off a lot of stress because I had the clarity. I saved quite a lot of money, I mean, in this whole process as well. Right away, I was struck by her empathy and clarity and deep commitment to people navigating incredibly complex legal system. In this conversation, we will explore the human side of the law, who actually needs an immigration lawyer, what it's like to fight for people's right, and how victories and setbacks shape a lawyer's journey. We will also hear a bit about who Lotte is outside the courtroom, her stories, value, and passions. So, whether you are an expat, a migrant, a law student, or just curious about how the system works, I promise this episode will offer insight and inspiration. So, let's jump in. Thank you very much, Lotte, to come to our podcast. So, my first question: how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. That introduction is a lot to live up to.
So, can you tell us a bit about your background, your childhood, education, and what led you to the world of law?
Yeah, of course. Like you introduced me already, my name is Lotte. I'm a Dutch immigration attorney in the Netherlands. I'm also Dutch born and raised. I was born in a town, in a city in the north, all the way in the north of Holland. It's called Groningen. I don't know if you have you ever been to Groningen?
No, I only have heard about it.
Okay,
Stories.
well, it's a bit of a train ride, but it's definitely worth it. So that's where I grew up the first few years of my life. And then we moved to the south of Brabant, which is all the way in the south of the Netherlands. I lived there until I started my college education. And I moved out of my family's place. Yeah, my background and how I ended up in the world of law. I think if I have to trace it back to my childhood, what was quite determining is the fact that my father was a social worker, and he was working a lot with different groups in the local society. So he developed a lot of projects for different communities, also including the communities of migrants. Yeah, so as a young girl, I still have this picture, this image in my head. I think at one point he organized a bicycle class for new people, and I have this image of I guess it was a Saturday, and we were standing on our schoolyard, and my dad was teaching these people to how to ride a bicycle, and there were a lot of women in hijab, so it was quite a beautiful, impressive sight.
Yeah.
So I think that really did contribute to kind of having a sense of that there's a whole world out there, and there's a lot of different countries and different people coming from all over the world. And there's also a lot of injustice, I have to say, and a lot of unjust situations that people flee from, and how they then end up in another country. So I think that might have been quite important for my story. Yeah.
Interesting to know. So another question is basically what made you choose immigration and human rights as your
Yeah.
focus?
Initially, when I was in high school, and I thought of, what I wanted to do after graduation, I initially wanted to become a doctor, actually, because that felt like a very concrete way to help people, and I think that has always been one of the things I wanted to do, is to help others. But then I became very into music, so I was singing at a young age, and at some point I ended up in a recording studio, and I wanted to pursue a music career when I was like 16, 17 years old. And then at the same time, I was flunking a year in high school. So I had to redo another year in high school. And I realized that if I wanted to become a doctor, I had to study for like 10, 15 years to be able to finally start working in my profession. And I realized no, there was no way I was gonna do that. I was not that committed, apparently. And it was also difficult, I think, to combine it with a musical career that I at that point still had the ambition for. But then, yeah, the music path, it didn't really work out. And then I discovered the existence of international law and human rights, and that then kind of really attracted my interest. And I ended up studying international law and international relations. And after graduating, I ended up getting my first job at the district court in Amsterdam. And that's where I really learned everything I know about the fundaments of immigration law and administrative law and human rights law and the procedures. I did a lot of asylum law cases, but also other immigration cases. And it was always very fascinating to me that you're sitting, I mean, as a legal officer, I was working as a legal officer at the time for the court, and you every day there was a new pile of files that ended up on my desk. And you open the file, and it's a whole story of someone coming from another part of the world, and the whole world kind of lands on your desks together with all these personal stories of people and why they ended up in the Netherlands and why they are seeking to stay here. That has always been very fascinating to me. Yeah.
Interesting. Here, my next question is outside the courtroom, who is Lotte? And what are your passions and hobbies at this point in time in your life? Because it's also keep on changing.
Yeah, life does change a lot. First of all, I'm not in the courtroom all the time. Being an attorney doesn't necessarily mean you're always in court. It kind of depends on the practice that you have. So I spend most of my time behind the computer, in my office or in my home office. But outside of work, yeah, I enjoy, spending time with family and friends. I recently moved to Rotterdam not too long ago after living in Amsterdam for a very long time. So I still kind of feel new in the city, and I'm really discovering a lot. And hobbies, I still love music, even though the music didn't work out, which I think is a blessing. I still love going to concerts. One of the biggest events here in Rotterdam is the North Sea Jazz Festival.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever been there?
No,
No,
no.
North Sea Jazz? It's one of the biggest jazz festivals in the world.
Send me the link. I mean, after
I
the
will send you the
podcast.
link
Yeah.
afterwards. I can recommend it. I'm a loyal visitor every year, so now I can go on my bicycle if I wanted to visit. So I'm very excited. That's next in 2 weeks, actually. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, I volunteer. I enjoy being a mentor of high school students, helping them out a little bit with making choices in terms of what they want to study and how they should go about it. And dealing with certain things that are related to being a teenager in high school. So that's very that's a lot of fun and very fulfilling, I would say. Yeah, so and I do some other volunteering works, so that also I really enjoy that. But I'm also just I can also be a lazy couch potato.
We all have that lazy
Yeah.
part in in us. That's very interesting that you are into music and quite a lot of in volunteering. While preparing for the podcast with you, I was going through with your LinkedIn profile. I was quite amazed. Seeing all this volunteering work in a different sections. Some of them are related to justice department itself, laws related. Some of them were like helping the lawyers. So lawyer of lawyers, something like that.
Lawyers for Lawyers.
Yeah, lawyers for lawyers.
Yeah, that's an organization in the
Yeah,
Netherlands that I'm also
yeah,
volunteering at. It's an organization where lawyers like myself volunteer to ask attention for lawyers worldwide who are dealing with challenges
yeah,
in exercising their profession,
yeah.
because it can be difficult and sometimes even very dangerous to be a lawyer and to work on specific cases. So it's important that we stand up for each other.
So can you also just, especially mention about that your working professional working career? Like earlier, you used to work with a legal justice department, and then you also came into the consultancy part, and now you are working by yourself or with, under the name of your own company. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a good for publicity as well. So you can mention that part. The journey of this one, your professional career.
Like I said, I started working at the court in Amsterdam, where I worked several years for the immigration court
Yeah.
as a legal officer, and then I switched to criminal law, and so that's a different team at the court, where they process all the criminal cases, and they rule on the criminal cases, but also the extradition cases. So it was a bit of a specific team that did a lot of cases that were linked to criminal law, but had an international aspect to it. So also extradition, human trafficking. Yeah. And then I was able to join an EU mission in the east of Europe, in the Balkan region, where I then moved to, and I lived and worked there for a year and a half to work on international criminal cases. Together with local and international judges under the umbrella of the EU mission where I worked, that I worked for. And it was, really important, I think, period of my life where I really discovered a lot about myself, but also about the world. But after a year and a half, I decided to go back to the Netherlands. And that's when I really decided I wanted to become an attorney and work for clients. And I also realized that immigration law was really the field of law where I wanted to work in, because, immigration law, it's always, today you also read the news. So it's always part of political discussions and debates. And legally, it's also very challenging because it's quite technical. The more and more EU law influences it as well. But I think most importantly, what I like about it most is just having all these clients from different places in the world with, their individual stories and backgrounds, and learning a lot about their background, their cultures, their countries, their journeys. Yeah, that's also been, I think, one of the main reasons why immigration law remains really, really interesting to work, an interesting field to work in. And then I found a position with an immigration firm in Amsterdam, where I worked for about 6 years, and I became an attorney there. And then recently, only 3 months ago, I started my own law office.
Can you also name it? For publicity.
Sure. It's Lift Legal. There's a website, liftlegal.nl. It's still a bit of a work in progress, but you can have a look and find information.
Last question about your personal journey and motivation, which I have, is basically if you have a personal mission or guiding principle in life. If you have, or if you want to keep it, or something like that. So what it is?
I think one of the things that I try to remind myself of often as well, but also others when I get the chance is to expect the unexpected. So when you meet a person, we all have our bias, we all have our assumptions.
Yeah.
They might be positive assumptions or negative assumptions, but we do have them based on how we're programmed, what we experienced in our lives, what we've been told in media and by others. Yeah, I try to remind myself of that any person can surprise me with something that I did not expect, whether it's a characteristic or something about their story or something, an interest. Yeah, a person that is from a specific region where, for example, tennis is not a typical sport to play. That
Hmm.
person can still be very into playing tennis at the one local tennis club. So that's what I mean when I say expect the unexpected. It's nice to just kind of keep an open mind and just let people tell their story themselves.
Oh, that's a very interesting one. I mean, I also find it, I mean, sometimes in my life, I mean, that the perceptions or preoccupied concepts
Hmm.
or ideas stops us to explore more in the life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we have an open mind, then a lot of possibilities also starts coming up.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Then just don't, yeah, try not to rule out
Yeah.
possibilities. But of course, I mean, I fail at it regularly. So it's definitely something I should write it on my wall or something.
Who typically needs an immigration lawyer? What are some situations where people wait too long to seek help?
Generally speaking, people migrate for specific reasons, right? So there's always a purpose of the migration, of the residency that they are seeking. And that can be related to seeking asylum, for example, when people are being persecuted for reasons in their home country. But it can also be related to finding new love and wanting to move with your partner in this new, or bringing your partner over to, in this case, the Netherlands, or when you want to work here, you found a job. That can be a reason why people want to migrate. And typically, a lawyer is needed, I would say, when things don't go as planned or when there's a certain issue. For example, when specific conditions of a residency scheme cannot be met.
Mm-hmm.
The Netherlands has a very strict immigration policy, depending on the purpose of residency, but mostly you can say it's very strict. And there are strict requirements for each residency scheme. And if you can't meet those, then you can apply, but it might be rejected. So that is often a reason why people seek the advice or the assistance of a lawyer. Or when, for example, the immigration authorities want to revoke your permit, so they want to withdraw the permit that you received, that you acquired here, because, for example, when you fall out of love and your relationship is over, but your residency depended on your partner, the immigration authorities find out that you are half separated. For example, when you moved out and you changed your address registration, or when your ex-partner called the immigration authorities and informed them that you were separating. That is so a situation that I often encounter where people seek advice, and sometimes that's also a typical situation where they forget that they have a residence permit. When big changes happen in your life, it's very understandable that your residence permit may not be the first thing that you think of when you're separating, especially when there's kids and there's a lot of things that you need to arrange. Yeah, then it's very important that you keep an eye on the correspondence letters from the authorities, because you might only get 2 weeks to respond to a letter saying, hey, we found out you're no longer living together with your partner, which means that we're assuming you're no longer in a relationship. So that means you no longer meet the requirements of your residence permit. So we're going to revoke your residence permit unless there are important reasons that you want us to know why we shouldn't. So you have 2 weeks to respond and go. And when people don't respond to that in time,
Mm-hmm.
then there might be a decision, and then you have 4 weeks to file an administrative appeal against that decision, or you might have lost your legal remedy to challenge it. So long story, sorry about that. It's
No
those
worries.
those kind of situations that make, I think, the added value of a lawyer quite clear. yeah, sometimes it's just really difficult to navigate all the procedures and the rules in the Netherlands that can be quite confusing if you don't read Dutch, or you're not that good at the Dutch language yet, or you're not familiar with Dutch bureaucracy or the procedures. So then it can be good to have a lawyer to help you out with that.
I think, I mean, this piece, or this answer of this question which you gave,
Hmm.
this is the most important or valuable thing for the whole podcast when you
Yeah.
need it. Could you share a few cases that were meaningful to you, that the kind of victories that remind you why you do this work?
I mean, I feel that with a lot of different types of cases. It also depends on the client. If I have a really good connection with a client, that can also be very fulfilling to work for them. I think one type of case that I've done regularly that is very meaningful are cases where the client is often a woman, unfortunately, a victim of domestic violence while she's on a dependent residence permit. So she's in the Netherlands. She has a residence permit to stay with a partner or a husband. During her stay in the Netherlands, there are incidents of domestic violence, and it takes a lot of courage for them, especially living in another country and maybe not even being allowed to. I've seen that where they were not allowed to learn the Dutch language, or to have a social environment, to make friends. It's very courageous and difficult for them to step out and seek help. And once they do, then often through organizations in the neighborhood, social workers, they then ask me to assist, because if they have taken the decision to leave that relationship or to end the marriage, that will impact their residency status in the Netherlands. And in the Netherlands, after 5 years of having a residence permit with a partner, or with a family member, then you're eligible for an independent residence permit. But until that moment, your options are very limited. So
Yeah.
if you're 3 years in the Netherlands on the basis of a residence permit and you decided to separate, that will impact your residency status, and it may mean that you have to leave the Netherlands. But in very special circumstances, especially cases that involve children that are in the Netherlands, or circumstances such as having been a victim of domestic violence, there may be a way to continue your legal residency in the Netherlands. But those cases are not very easy. You have to have a lot of evidence. The immigration authorities require you to press charges against your partner, which also is not easy to do in a lot of cases. So yeah, that those are cases that I managed to help those ladies ultimately with continuing their legal residency in the Netherlands. And that was
Mhm.
very yeah, very nice. I remember I received a video of one client. She finally received her residence permit, her new residence permit, which was an independent residence permit, after such a long story, such a story, and a very long procedure.
Yeah.
And I received a video where she was holding up a cake with candles, and in the center of the cake there was her new residence permit, and she was like holding it up and dancing and singing,
Uh,
and that was very clear. She was very happy. Yeah, I will
Fulfilling.
not forget that very soon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in such, I mean, actually, I mean, the situation which you mentioned, it is a very dramatic or very difficult situation for that other partner. I mean, who is suffering actually, and yeah, I can think of little bit how she might have felt. I mean, because so much, she does not have too much rights at the same time. She has also a legal restriction, etc., etc. Interesting.
Well, she
Hmm.
has rights. I think a lot of people sometimes they feel a little bit lost, but they have rights, and that's really important that they know that. It doesn't always mean that they get what they want, but
Hmm.
it's important to know your rights, and if needed, to also ask about your rights. Because she did have rights, but sometimes you need to explain to the Dutch authorities why those rights should lead to legal residency here.
We talked about the very fulfilling or satisfactory or kind of victorious cases where you felt, I mean, okay, it's something really good. Are there some stories, I mean, where you felt like a setback and some learnings from those cases?
In general, again,
Hmm.
also because it's difficult for me to speak about individual cases, but
Yeah,
in general, like I said, the immigration rules in the Netherlands are quite strict. And one thing that we notice, and when I say we, I mean as immigration, the community of immigration attorneys in the Netherlands, is that there are definitely double standards when you look at the law and the immigration law in the Netherlands and how
yeah.
it is applied. So you see, for example, when you have a certain nationality, for example, you're American, you can
Hmm.
travel to the Netherlands without a visa, right? And if you want to bring your partner to the Netherlands, you're Dutch, and you want to bring your partner to the Netherlands, and your partner is from the US, or maybe let's say from Australia, then they don't have to first sit an exam at the Dutch embassy in Australia before being able to travel to the Netherlands. You can come here and apply from here, and you're exempted from this integration exam
Hmm.
abroad. But that is a requirement for people who are, for example, coming from India or
Hmm.
from Ghana,
Okay.
or even coming from countries that are formerly part of the Dutch Empire,
Yeah.
the Dutch kingdom, that are our former colonies. So yeah, it's quite frustrating to sometimes see, also when it comes to visa requirements. If you are, for example, from one of the former Dutch colonies, so Indonesia or Suriname, you want to come visit the Netherlands to visit family or friends, you need to first apply for a visa in order to
Hmm.
be allowed to enter the Netherlands. Whereas an American or an Australian can come to the Netherlands during a visa-free period of 90 days. They don't need to apply for a visa. That's quite frustrating, mostly for clients, but also for us as lawyers, because it's difficult to explain, right? People in Suriname, they speak Dutch. They are sometimes former Dutch citizens. So I have clients who are elderly people who were born before Suriname became independent, and they had Dutch citizenship before the independence, who now are treated exactly the same as, for example, someone coming from your country, for example, from India, even
Yeah.
though they have clearly very strong links to the Netherlands, right? They're former Dutch citizens. They speak the Dutch language. Their family might live in the Netherlands. They sometimes even worked here in the 70s or 80s. Their starting point should be different, in my opinion. If the Netherlands really wants to make amends with its colonial history, I would say that is a very concrete way to alleviate some of those very strict rules for citizens of the former Dutch colonies. But I think that, yeah, that's very frustrating, and I would say also a setback in some cases, because, for example, I assist some people in cases where they don't meet all the conditions for family reunification
Hmm.
because they are older and their children are adults. So that means that they're not part of what we call the nuclear family or the core family. So they fall outside the scope of family reunion, but they are very interdependent, and especially when they are also as a part of the community that I just mentioned. So they are, former Dutch citizens from Suriname or from Indonesia, clearly have a strong link with the Netherlands. It's still very, very difficult. It's like an 80-year-old grandma who's living all by herself in Suriname without after her husband, for example, passed away, and the children are all living here, the grandchildren are all living here, and still she is not allowed to stay here because of the strict rules. And I think that, yeah, that it's very difficult to explain that to my clients,
Yeah.
that we get negative decisions after negative decisions, and yeah, very difficult. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because I'm wondering, you're Indian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you ever visited the UK?
No,
You
and
have, but if you
I,
would want if you would want to visit the UK,
mhm.
would you first have to apply for a visa if you were still living in India?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but isn't that strange, right? So I am able to visit the UK without a visa. I'm
mhm.
Dutch, and you're from India, which has a very long and strong connection with the
Yeah,
UK,
yeah.
but still you need to apply for a visa.
Yes, I mean, I think, I mean, there are two things about which you have mentioned. First, I think as an Indian, we have
Hmm.
never asked for it, I think.
You really?
We have never asked from British that, I mean, you have ruled us for 300 years, and at least
Yeah,
do this much
that's what
courtesy.
you mean. Yeah, I see. Yeah,
And then when we compare, I mean, Dutch colonies and British colonies, I think, I mean, Dutch were really relatively better than Britishers, I would say, little bit at least.
I
In
think
British.
they were all quite ruthless. Let's put it like that.
So, I mean, I think, I mean, we can go quite deeper onto those emotions and sentiments. There are a lot of emotions on that side.
Yeah,
Okay, let's come back again to the
sure.
podcast line. So my question is, I mean, pointed question is, what does a day in your life usually look like? I mean, our guest or audience will understand that. I mean, how does their work look like? How is their life? I mean, especially on working day.
Like I already mentioned earlier, the idea that a lot of people have is that I'm constantly in court, which is not the case.
Yeah.
It's mostly still an office job, unfortunately,
Uh-huh.
and even more so now that we're, since COVID, we're working online, also meeting with people online, which is also quite convenient, I have to say. So I have a lot of client meetings online where I am also able to speak with people abroad. A typical working day is spending a lot of time emailing, phone calls to the Dutch authorities, with clients, with people who are maybe assisting those clients in their in their procedures. And then I meet my clients either online or in my office. I started my independent firm 3 months ago, and I try to work as virtual as possible. So that means I don't have a lot of physical case files and documents, but everything is in my computer, in my laptop, so I can work often from different locations. I work from home. Today I'm working from home a few days a week, but I also have an office space in Gouda,
Yeah.
which is at a firm that I share an office space with, another law firm there.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to meet my clients in person, or they would like to meet in person, in some cases it's much better to speak in person. Then we'll meet there. And then, yeah, a few times a month I have a hearing at an IND office, which can be anywhere in the country. So
Mm-hmm.
an office from the immigration authorities in the Netherlands.
Uh-huh.
In administrative appeal cases, the immigration authorities have to often schedule a hearing,
Uh-huh.
and then we go to the office of the IND, the Dutch immigration authorities, to speak with the officer there, of course, with my clients.
Yeah.
Sometimes with an interpreter, to answer questions, to give more information about that specific case. And then sometimes I also have court hearings, which can also be anywhere in the country. Sometimes I have to travel all the way to Zwolle or Groningen to go to a court hearing.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's closer by.
What are some unseen emotional challenges that come with this profession?
I think I already answered it for the majority. Well, sometimes you have decisions or rulings in your client's case, and that might be very difficult to explain to your clients. So you have to explain the unexplainable, and then in some cases there is nothing you can do anymore because it was the final legal remedy, and that can be very, very frustrating and very painful. Yeah, an emotional challenge. I think I'm quite capable of separating between some of the very disheartening situations of my clients and my responsibility in their case and my work in their case, and separate that from me personally. Of course, you always have a, sometimes you have a conversation with the client who's telling something that is, yeah, really deeply saddening. That can, yeah, I mean, be difficult, but luckily I'm quite good at then focusing on what we can do about it instead of kind of dwelling in the emotion of that situation.
How do you balance your personal life and emotional weight of your work? So basically, how you get out of this professional work, and how do you manage it? I mean, at this period of time.
Well, like I said, it is quite challenging, especially now that I have my own
Yeah. Oh.
firm. Yeah, and just you at some point you have to turn off your computer and call it a day, and then there's a new day tomorrow. Exercise is important to clear my head. I'm not super consistent with exercising, but I try to do it a few times a week.
Are you still enjoying music? I mean, kind of. I mean, you still went
I am
inside the music.
enjoying music. I'm not really making any more music, but I'm definitely enjoying concerts and listening to music at home. Yeah, for sure. So
Hmm.
that's also a great way to clear my head.
Advice and reflection, basically. So for migrants and or for refugees who may be overwhelmed, what's one thing you wish they should know? I think, I mean, I know the answer because of your
What's
pre.
what's the
Yeah.
answer?
I think, I mean, answer is basically you can't think of all the scenarios. It's good, I mean, when you are in this difficult scenario,
Yeah,
at least have one appointment with the lawyers, so you will get to know your rights at least.
yeah.
So later
No,
on, you
you're
can
right.
decide. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think that's the one thing I wish they knew is that they understand they have rights, but they also understand that that does not always lead to a residence permit.
Mm.
You will not always get what you want, but you do have rights, and it's important to understand what those rights are. And if possible, get the advice from an expert lawyer. Don't ask ChatGPT.
That's
A lot of people do that, and then they forward the response of ChatGPT to me, and then I need to explain to them why that's completely incorrect. I sometimes use ChatGPT also to, maybe change the formulation of the wording of my email. But as a test, as an experiment, I've also asked legal advice from ChatGPT, and it completely made up articles from laws that did not exist. Literally, they refer to, oh, you can see in Article 21 of the, and then I go to Article 21, it says something completely different. So please do not
uh,
trust ChatGPT. Maybe that's next to know your rights a very important thing to take away. Find an expert lawyer. Maybe just indeed one appointment is enough to get a clear idea of your options or the lack of options. If you need a lawyer but you cannot afford it or you think it's really expensive, there are ways to get funding for legal aid. You might not be eligible, but it depends on your income situation, and not every case is allows for legal aid. But there are ways, and sometimes it's maybe better to invest in a good lawyer than to yeah, make the wrong choices and take the wrong decisions based on incorrect information that might eventually cost you a lot more. But yeah, it's crucial to know your rights and to get information from someone who knows their stuff.
so another question is, it's a bit interesting question. I think you will find it. So for young people considering law, especially human rights law, what you say to inspire and prepare them?
I don't know if I can inspire them, but one thing I would advise is something I also did. So I'm speaking from my own experience. Maybe it's not per se necessary, but I think I would advise them to make sure that they get some working experience in different environments during their studies, doing internships, but also right after graduation. Maybe you already set your mind on becoming a lawyer, an attorney, but if you're graduating at 24, 25, 26, there's so much out there, and I think it's really beneficial to explore and get different experiences in different working environments for different types of organizations, perhaps even in different fields of law, before you decide, what you want to do. It will make it, easier to make the right choice. But also, if you end up advising clients or assisting clients in legal procedures, especially in immigration law, where you will meet people from all walks of life, from all over the world with different cultural backgrounds, it's very helpful to have those experiences, and not just life experiences, but also to have seen a bit of, the world, and different aspects of law and of working. I think will eventually make you a better lawyer. So that would be my advice.
Thank you. From your side, what's next for you, Lotte? Any project or causes you are currently excited about?
What's next for me? Well, I just started my law office in on
Yeah,
the 1st of April, so
yeah.
it hasn't even been 3 months. So that's I think for me enough exciting challenges ahead with that.
Yes, already.
I'm just getting started. I think for now I'm good with new projects.
So another question is, where can people follow your work or get in touch if they need help or want to collaborate with you?
My website, I already mentioned it before,
Yeah,
so
lift.
you can visit liftlegal.nl,
Mhm.
or you can find me on LinkedIn.
Yes, you are also on LinkedIn. So I'll paste all those links. Finally, in one word or sentence, what does justice means to you?
It's a very philosophical question. What justice means, I think, if I connect it to my work, I would say a fair and solid decision making by governments, and where they also consider the personal circumstances of each individual, and they approach cases as stories of people and not just numbers. I would say that that's important to me, and also for them to have, for people to have guaranteed access to legal remedies, because that's also something that is increasingly difficult for people these days. Not only in the Netherlands, by the way, but yeah.
Lotte, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your story, and your
My
wisdom with
pleasure.
us. And your work remind us that law is just not about the rules, it's about people, dignity, humanity. And to our listeners, if you found this conversation valuable, please share it with someone who might benefit. And if you are looking to learn more about Lotte's work, need legal support, you will find the links in the episode description. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep listening. Thank you for being with us.